Hi everyone, I thought today I should make a med pack from Tomb Raider. It's a game that I grew up playing. It's probably the first game I got for my first ever PlayStation when I think I was about 9. And it's something my sister and I were absolutely obsessed with as children. So I decided I would make her one for her birthday, like a little pouch that she could put her makeup brushes in or little bits and pieces. So I started just sketching out the ideas that I had, and I kind of measured up against an existing pencil case. So I knew I wanted about 7 centimetres, and I used a bit of my maths from school here to work out the rest. So I will link a photo of this sheet that I sketched my idea out below. The entire make took me about an hour, including all the sewing and all the designing. Now I wanted the wrap to go around about 1 1/4 times, just so that it had that proper rollover effect. It looks like from the game images that it's supposed to be just a full-on roll, and I did think about doing a brush roll, but it seemed like this would be a more versatile idea. So once I worked out all the different proportions, I just started to draw them out onto paper, and I will give you the pattern measurements either linked below or in the description below because it's dead easy. So I'll draw everything out, make sure I've labelled it. I don't tend to add seam allowances onto my pattern pieces, just because then I know if I'm just slightly out I can fudge it a little bit. I also don't have a compass, so I just use this little hack and draw the diameter in lots of different angles and then just circle. It worked, it's fine. So I cut everything out, and then just check that everything's going to fit and work, and it looked like it was going to, so I moved on. Now I wanted to get that cross pretty good, because I know this is an important thing that you would look for when you were playing the game. So again, I just kind of roughly cut it out to size, and then I just folded it to make sure that the size would be right, and then worked out the cross shape to fit in the middle, like so. Now weirdly there's a little bit of an overlap when you look at this as an image, so you have to cut 1 1/2 of these so that you can actually see the whole thing. Although I think in future you could perhaps just do one and have it overlapping. Now I used 1mm 100% wool felt for this project, but I think 2mm would actually be a good idea, just to give it a bit more stability and a bit more strength in its position, because it is quite soft and it does collapse a little, but with things in it I'm sure it will be fine. So here I'm using a dissolvable marker, one that will disappear, and I'm cutting out, leaving myself about a 5mm seam allowance around the outside. This is something that, again, I just prefer to do later. So 2 sides and the 2 straps as well. Now technically this is supposed to have buckles to connect it, but I couldn't find any gold buckles, so I just decided to get buttons, and I think the end result is fine. So here's the pieces cut out. And then you lay the straps on top like so. I left about a 3 centimetre gap on each side, just so that it would line up properly, and you need an overhang where the buttons are going to go. And you can sew this on, you could glue this on if you wanted to. I stitched on using my sewing machine with a pin stitch. So here it is done, and I'm now working on the crosses, and I decided just to glue these on. I will go back later and stitch over the top of them, but I often glue first because I know everything is held in one place. Gave up on the marker at this point and just went straight over to a fabric marker because you couldn't really see it on the dark red, and it didn't really matter because I'd be layering it anyway. So get the individual pieces glued on. This is a really good fabric glue, but it does slightly dissolve my desk for some reason, so I need to be very careful with it. So the little half piece goes on the front, the flap, and this, I think you could potentially just do a full circle here, but looking at the original image this seems to be more accurate, or more true to the original. And then what you need to do is you need to make sure that you're pinning the right sides together on this, so make sure you spend some time working this out, because if I make a mistake on this it always kills me, because I know it's going to take ages to unpin it and unpick all the stitching that I've done. So pin it right sides together. Thankfully on the felt circle it doesn't matter too much if you've used this dissolvable marker. So you just want to pin it lots and lots of pins so that nothing shifts when you're stitching it together. If you're hand stitching you could just go ahead and skip this step and just hand sew. I would recommend using a back stitch for this and an extra strong thread. And then when you get to the overlap, just get an extra pin in and then you're ready to sew it. So here it is all stitched together. Get all the pins out. And then you just need to trim the edge, because you'll find when you turn it around, you know, it will show you that it fits right, but it'll be all buckled, as you can see there. And the only way to unbuckle that is to either put notches in it or just to trim off the excess, which I tend to do with felt because it doesn't fray, at least not easily. So same thing on the other side. And here it is. So at this point you just want to check it fits. I was pretty happy with it at this stage though, because you can see it is definitely a med pack. So line it up, mark where the folds are going to be. Make sure you've got that even. And then just pin the straps into place, because you want to get that cross on exactly where it's going to fold over and fit later on. There we are. So again, I'm using a bit of glue, but you could stitch this. It wouldn't be a problem, it wouldn't be too difficult to do. I was just being lazy. And now it's time to add the buttons. So like I say, on the original, it is a clasp, but I couldn't find them, and so I thought these buttons were pretty good. And I don't think she's going to be too fussed. This is the kind of game that became kind of our childhood game as well. It's something that we used to play kind of individually as well. I think Lara Croft was probably my first heroine, and I was a bit embarrassed of that when I was a teenager, but now I think, you know what, I can't think of many better heroines to have at that age. You know, the first real female character in gaming to be a proper heroine. So I think she's probably a bit old now to be playing with this, but hopefully it'll make her take her back to those times when we used to play this game together. So if you put a pin in, it protects your buttonholes and it stops them from stops you from accidentally cutting all the way through. So I just use a seam ripper to cut open the buttonhole. If you can't sew a buttonhole, I think, to be honest with you, with felt, if you were careful, you could just cut a little slot there and it wouldn't be a problem, because, like I said, felt does not fray. You might want to support it in some way though, maybe with a glued edge. Now we need to just attach on the buttons. I'm using extra strong thread because I hate sewing on buttons, and so the less stitches the better. Just roughly work out where the button needs to be. It doesn't matter too much because obviously a buttonhole will shift around the shank of the button anyway. So work it out roughly, mark it on, gung ho, and lock on the thread and start to stitch the button on. These buttons were like £1 each from John Lewis, so she better appreciate this. I think that's more than the rest of the fabric put together. So get them on stitched on nice and neatly, nice and tightly. Run the thread through, snip it off. Just check that everything fits and buckles together. And that's about it. So please let me know if you fancy seeing the large med pack made. I thought it'd be a really cute DS case. Thanks for watching.